Hello and welcome to episode 372 of the Stacey West podcast. I am your host for this evening. My name is Gary, if you have not caught the other 371 episodes. And to my right on the screen, but my left as I sit here, is my co-host today, Mr. Lamming. How are you?
Hello, Mr. Hutchinson. Yes, very well indeed. Thank you. I had a very relaxing weekend. Good, mate. Good. Had a lovely meal out yesterday, a delayed Mother's Day, since my mum missed her own Mother's Day by going on a hen do. So we went to Oliveira's, the little tapas place at the top of the hill yesterday. And I've never been before. I've been to lots of nice places in Lincoln, but hadn't been there before. And it was superb. Absolutely superb. Highly recommend it. That's 2 restaurant recommendations in 2 podcasts for me. So that's my weekend. What have you been up to?
Well, you said yesterday that I had the most middle-class Saturday that you could imagine, because it was a day of chores that included putting up a whirligig washing line, cleaning out the fish tank. What was the other one? Oh, putting up the awning, the new awning that we got. Do you know what? Because the one before ended up in the bin, and that's because it was mouldy and it had poles and we didn't know what went where. This one nearly did as well, because I didn't realise that in order to fix a drive-away awning to my van, I've got the thing on my van that fixes into it, but you get a drive-away kit, and that doesn't come with the actual awning. So I've had to order that. But I had a panic. So we've got the awning, and it's all bagged up, and it's brand new, and it's this great kind of all singing, all dancing air thing, like the no poles, you pump up. And I suddenly realised I don't have an inflator. So I was panicking a little bit. So I thought, well, what I'm going to do is go into Whole Foods and buy an inflator. So I've gone into Whole Foods, bought the tyre inflator, but then thought, but it might not be the right one. So I'll buy a foot pump as well. So I bought a tyre inflator, bought a foot pump, come home, put them on the table, gone to hang my coat up. As I've done that, look down, there's a tyre inflator in the cupboard under the stairs. So I've already got one. Gone into the shed, there's a foot pump hung up, so I've already got one of those as well. And then when I've come over to unpack the awning, I've opened the awning and it comes with a bloody pump. so I now have
Good work.
five inflating things. And then today there's the little case of the Lincoln 10K. But before I mention anything at all, James Christopher's online. I think he said 4 weeks ago James had a spinal injection and hadn't run, and today he's done the 10K and he did it in something like an hour and 3, like an absolutely phenomenal time. So before we talk about anything else, absolutely hats off for that. Absolutely
Fair
brilliant.
Play. Great effort. Congratulations.
Yeah, definitely. But what a great event. Andy Simmons said that he tried to cheer me on, but I had my headphones in, concentration. The thing is, for me, it's kind of part of the training. So I met Paul Degare, my trainer, on Friday, and he was sort of saying, look, you can run, if you want to try and do a PB, you can, but you have to do it in a certain way, negative splits. So you have to start the first 5K at a certain pace and then up the pace for the second 5K. So I've done that. I've got to 8 kilometers and I know I've got some in the tank. So I thought, you know what? That's 2K. I'm going to absolutely smash this. I could see that I was going to get something around a 51. And you put your foot down, you go up Netlham Hill. When you drive up Netlham Hill, you think it's flat. When you run up Netlham Hill, it feels like Lindham Hill. And it's just like, as you know, you did it last year. It's this ongoing kind of treadmill. And I got to 9.5 kilometers and I suddenly realized that was utterly buggered. And I just suddenly got, because the water, it was so warm. But what an event. So many people out cheering, so many people I knew running, and I think it was probably one of the best we've done.
Well, I'm genuinely pleased for you. I feel a bit bad after all this praise we've been giving you, sending kind of your way over the last few weeks. I feel a little bit dirty doing it too often, but yeah, credit where it's due. Again, PB is exceptional, but they're becoming quite normal for you at the moment, aren't they? In all your training as well.
At some point, it's going to stop. So, I like my ego massaged. I had it all the way away from running and through Christmas and all that sort of thing. So when it stops, but eventually they're going to have to stop. The thing that I think with today was I got my official chip time was 51:07 or something like that, I think it was. But my Strava time was a little bit different. My Strava time was 50:30 something. And I've always believed in Strava. More so than anything. Strava can tell me something about Lincoln City and I'll believe it over my own beliefs. So we'll take the 50. So yes, so that was that, but it was a nice easing in to the weekend. It's been busy, but I did get time, as did you yesterday, to sit down and watch 90 minutes of what I've got to say was an excellent game of football. And beforehand, there was talk on the radio of it being Lincoln City players being on the beach and having to be at it and all this sort of stuff. Then I just thought, do you know what a treat for the 600-700 Imps fans that went down there, because I think we really showed the potential in the team when things go right.
Yeah, absolutely. I think firstly, just to mention the supporters, I think absolutely outstanding effort by everyone that went. 600 and something away fans in a game. It's not going to be cheap to get to. Long old journey down to a very expensive part of the country with, let's be brutally honest, nothing to play for this season in terms of real kind of meaningful action. To take 600 plus Imps down there and make a real racket, by the way, as well. I just thought that was a superb effort. I was expecting this maybe to be like 200 or 300. And yeah, I was pleasantly surprised by that. So yeah, credit where it's due. Well done, everyone that made the effort to go, because that's some effort. And yeah, you're right. I think they're rewarded by a really, really strong performance. Because let's make no mistake here. Charlton are excellent, particularly at home. Really are the form team in the league, other than Birmingham City, who are just basically unbeatable at the moment. So it was going to be a tough ask. Superb home record, superb form. I think there's only Birmingham who have picked up more points than them in the last 12 games. Just good team, really, really good team. And we were on it from the first minute. I have to say, from the first minute, I just thought we just let Charlton know they were going to be in for a tough afternoon. It wasn't going to be an easy game for them. Just really pleased with the whole performance, to be honest, but particularly how we started. But I suppose we ought to talk about the lineup first.
I was just going to say, let's strip it back to team selection, because I think there's a couple of big talking points. I mean, James Collins starting, which, again, there was comments on the commentary about him not playing enough. We're managing him, and as much as supporters don't particularly like that, with the advances in sports science, that really is something that I think is you're going to see more and more of in football, isn't it? But no Sam Clucas at all on the bench, and another start for Ethan Hamilton, who was obviously our man of the match on Tuesday.
Indeed, yes. On Collins, I think it's pretty obvious that you will struggle to play him every single match and get the best version of him. I'd much rather have the best version of him every other game. But he's played back-to-back games, by the way. He started on Tuesday, started yesterday as well. So it's not as strict as it is with Lewis Muntsma, which is a very much for injury management. This is just making sure we're getting the best version of him. And we certainly did yesterday, didn't we? We certainly did yesterday. I was pleased to see Ethan Hamilton keep his place in the team after a really, really good performance on Tuesday night, and he backed up with another one. I was interested to see Conor McGrandle start next to him over Tom Bayliss, because I thought Tom was brilliant on Tuesday night. But Michael did mention that we would look to see a little bit of swapping and changing in the coming weeks. It did make sense to have Ben House starting in the 10 role over Rico. Not that Rico had done anything wrong, but in this particular fixture, in the manner that we're going to be playing against, obviously really good out of possession player. Even Michael Skubal himself has said that Ben needs to do a little bit more with the ball. But we were going to have long spells yesterday without it. So it makes total sense to have someone who's kind of all energy and really intelligent out of possession in that 10 role. And I thought it was interesting to see C8 Ring get a start as well. Again, that's his second start in 3 games, I think. I thought it was interesting that he started on the right and Jovan started on the left. We haven't seen that, of course, really at all at any point this season. And I thought that was very interesting, if nothing else. I think we'll talk about Eric a little bit more, I think, as the pod goes on. But I thought he was really promising in spells yesterday. And I also thought Jovan would look quite threatening until he went off injured. So, yeah, a few changes. nothing. I think nothing really feels surprising in team selection so at the moment, because I think every team we put out is competitive, but also Michael's kind of set this up a little bit in that he's going to be swapping and changing a little bit, with not both eyes, but with one eye on next season. So I think for me, it's going into the game, it's looking at who's starting and thinking, okay, cool, let's see how it goes. And being open-minded enough to just see how it goes. And it went pretty well to begin with.
Well, I think the first player to talk about is probably going to be George Wickens, because although, yes, we did start well, I think I messaged you after about 12 minutes and said, we're in for a long afternoon here, because I actually thought Charlton started the better of the two sides for those first 10 minutes. Not that we were bad, but I thought that they had real control. I mean, Thierry Small was a constant threat. And it felt like the sort of game where if they get an early goal, it probably deflates us and they go on and win by 3 or 4. And so I want to pick up on something that happened in the 12th minute, which is George Wickens' first save of the afternoon. I thought he was outstanding from start to finish. I don't think you can blame Wickens for either of the goals, which we'll come on to. But he made a save, I think it was probably from Thierry Small, actually, on 12 minutes. It was a drive-through, crowd of players. He's made that save. I think Wickens has come on in leaps and bounds since he's been out of the side, since he's come back in for Zach Geacock. And I just thought early doors, that save was a really crucial moment. And there's a couple more that were as good as a goal.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what you want from your goalkeeper. Of course, you want them to kind of stand up when they've been tested. But I agree with you that George has really progressed, I think, and grown since he had his spell out of the team. It just seems like, in hindsight, really smart management, because, of course, it was enforced injury. He was just starting to pick up a little bit of form for 2 or 3 games before he got injured, actually, hadn't he? So it was a real shame. Zach came in, did well to begin with. So when George was fit, I quite liked it at the time that he wasn't kind of just straight back in, because Zach hadn't done anything to justify being dropped, but he had a couple of less than convincing performances towards the end of his run in the team. George came back in and has been pretty damn solid ever since, really. He looks a more comfortable and composed goalkeeper, more dominant goalkeeper than he did at the start of the season. So yeah, that's obviously a positive, but he's backing that up now of kind of just looking imposing and looking dominant. He's always been decent at his kind of high claims and things, but he's making big saves now as well. And it keeps you in the game, doesn't it? It kind of boosts you if you concede a high quality chance and it's saved. It kind of has a real positive impact on everyone on the team. I agree with you. We both agree. Thought he had the looks of a tough afternoon in that first few minutes, and that's not because we started badly. When I said we started well, it wasn't that we were kind of throwing punches, but we were competitive. But it was very clear that we were up against a very, very strong side, and it was going to be a typical afternoon. But we grew into the first half after that big save. A few minutes in, I think we really grew into the first half, and we were just really competitive and combative at times, and it was really pleasing to see.
Now, I actually, in my timeline is a little skewed here, and I can't remember if Jovan went off injured before our goal or after. So we'll talk about our goal, and then we'll talk about Jovan going off. I think he went off before, didn't he? So actually, we'll talk about Jovan going off first. I mean, it was a lovely move, by the way, the pass through for Jovan. And off the top of my head, I want to say that it was McGrandles, who, by the way, I thought was excellent yesterday. He's had a lot of stick, because if he misplaces a pass while he's covering in Ethan Arahan's role, it's critical. I don't think his passing accuracy is any better or worse than anybody else, but I do think that he was absolutely superb. But Jovan going off, Dom Jeffries came on, and just a word on Jeffries as well, because again, he kind of slotted into position nicely. I mean, he's been Mr. Versatile for us this season, but he doesn't look out of place when he comes on.
No, not at all. I like Dom Jeffries. I think he's been brilliant in the last, particularly since Christmas. He's been good all season. He's been very, I think we said this a few times, really, haven't we? He's been very just consistent. He's been your kind of 7 out of 10 every game, really, and very dependable. And he was that again yesterday. I think he's quite defensively solid. He's quite defensively minded in terms of his tactical awareness. And he's a threat going forward. But I think he's just like a solid kind of square peg in a square hole, even though it's a role that he hadn't played in consistently until this season. I have to say yesterday, though, not only did he play badly when he was on the pitch, I was really disappointed when Jovan went off injured, because he'd looked a real threat at that point. And he is, particularly on the left-hand side, because I've never really seen Jovan and Jeffries as a like for like, because Jovan's normally been on the right hand side. I was disappointed. I thought we'd lose a little bit of attacking threat when Jovan went off. I feel like we maybe did a little bit. As I said, I think Dom does a good job out there, and I think he's very solid. But I was really disappointed when Jovan went off, because I thought in that opening spell, as much as Thierry Small was a bit of a danger man for them going forward, Jovan was causing him some issues on that side.
And what's really interesting is actually that the ball through for Jovan saw him running the right channel.
Yeah. Good point.
So, I mean, we know what the podcast thinks of Jovan, particularly. So, it was a shame to see him go off. He went off and we scored a goal. Now, it's almost like there's no connection, I know, but it's almost like you could lay the goal over the opening our goal against Huddersfield. It was almost identical. Different corner taker, same delivery. Different person making the run and the flick on, same outcome. The only thing you didn't have was Rico on the back stick poking it in because it didn't need it. 27 goals, I think, from set pieces now, which has been outstanding. And again, another good base to move forward for next season. But in context of this game, that really popped the promotion balloon that seemed to be sailing over Charlton's ground at the Valley at the time, didn't it?
It did, yeah, particularly after Wrexham had won earlier in the day as well, creating it was a bit of a must-win game for Charlton, really. It probably felt like that going into it. Just a note on our set pieces, by the way, because you kind of briefly mentioned this on the podcast midweek when you were reviewing the Huddersfield game that I listened back to. And I just want to point out that Huddersfield were the best team in League One at conceding set pieces. They'd only conceded 3 before Tuesday night. And obviously, they conceded another against us. So it was almost which would win, the team that's theoretically best at scoring them or the team that's theoretically best at defending them. So, we know we're a threat, but to be a threat still against teams that are really strong at defending set pieces is really commendable. And I think it's worth pointing out that Charlton are one of the best teams from a defensive set piece perspective. So they had only conceded 8 all season before this match, which is the 3rd best record in the league. So it was almost identical in terms of opposition, in terms of like setup. They're strong at this sort of situation. But once again, outstanding delivery, great run, really, really good run by James Collins. The same run that Adam Jackson made on Tuesday and got there first. What I will say always makes me laugh though is because the delivery is outstanding, and you notice how good it is because it got connected by a Lincoln City player. If James Collins didn't make the run he made or didn't make it quite as well, almost everyone groans, you got to beat the first man off the corner. And it just goes to show that how close to a good delivery is it classed as a poor delivery. Like it's inches. And also the run that the target player makes often dictates whether it's a good delivery or not. So the actual delivery is often good. I'm not saying they're all good, but often when you're aiming for that very particular kind of little square of air in that kind of 6'5" off the ground, a little square kind of just in that corner of the 6-yard box, that's not a very big spot to aim for. So it takes 2 to tango, doesn't it, in regards to the deliverer and the attacker?
The deliverer and the deliveroo. So I you know what, I always say that about the crossing stats though, because a winger can have like 10 crosses, 1 successful, but actually 10 of 9, the other 9 might have been perfect, and it's on the striker. So that was our first goal. I thought after that we really managed quite well. I think after that, I mean, we in total, I think we had 4 shots, 3 on target. They had 15, 6 on target. Let's not make any bones about it. They were never out of this game, even at 1-0. And a lot of the comments I've seen have been along the lines of at 2-0 we should be killing the game off, or at 2-0 we shouldn't be letting it slip. But this is a good side, this Charlton side, and we do say this about certain teams at certain points. When we beat Peterborough 5-1, we're going, this isn't a terrible Peterborough side, but actually they were poor Bristol Rovers and we beat them 5-0. It's not a bad side, but they were poor Crawley, Mansfield. This was a really good Charlton side, and we're not just saying it for shits and giggles. The form table says it. This was a really, really tough game. So for us to manage that period after the goal through to half time without any real major scares, I thought was excellent. And then what you've got to do, if you're going to take anything from the game, is come out in the second half and face up to whatever they've got, because Nathan Jones will have given them a bollocking. We'll come on to the referee, by the way, who I thought was excellent, but I'm sure that Charlton won't agree with it at all, and I can see why. So you've got to come out and you've got to front up. If they're going to come at you, you might have to weather the storm. And instead of weathering the storm, we saw a moment of borderline exquisite quality. And my comment around this when I wrote the game up, and I stand by it, is that James Collins, as we probably know, is a natural goal scorer. He was exactly what Lincoln City needed at the time when he came in. He's exactly what every single football team needs at a certain level, wherever you are. And there's very, very few players I've seen play for Lincoln that I would say are natural finishers. And people will say to me, "Oh, talk about Simon Yeo scoring a lot of goals, Matt Reed scoring a lot of goals." Joking aside, John Akindi scored 15 odd goals. I know a lot of penalties. Matt Green, none of these strikers were natural finishers. You put James Collins in the position that he scored from, and for me, 95 times out of 100, you can turn your back and walk away because you know he's going to score. And we've only had a handful of players like that, in my experience, throughout my entire time as a Lincoln City fan, one of which, and I always go on about him, was Liam Hearn. Liam Hearn was outstanding. He was a natural finisher. He was excellent at what he did when he actually did it. So for the goal, you'll mention Ben House, I know. Nice, Ben was involved, but for me, that little kind of shimmy, whatever it was he did, James Collins did, and then the finish was just absolutely perfect.
Oh, it's brilliant. Yeah, I'll come to this in a moment. I'd like to just rewind just before half time, if that's all right, because you mentioned seeing it out until half time, and I just wanted to say how much I agree that I thought we were really good at being strong and not being particularly worried. And most people look at the stats over the 90 minutes, you think, bloody hell, Charlton battered Lincoln. And towards the second half, when they were chasing, they did, of course, throw the kitchen sink at it. But in that first half, they only had 6 shots. Only three of them were actually inside the box, XG of 0.26. So they really were not a massive threat in that first half at all. A lot of it came in the second half. But of course, before it did, we scored a fantastic goal. And we mentioned this when we were chatting yesterday. The highlights show the almost catastrophic back pass from Tendai Tarika that George Wickens deals with quite comfortably, and then we play from there to score the goal. But I actually think our play, it started with a throw-in on the right-hand side, and we kept possession of a throw in the Charlton half. We worked it across one side, then the other, and it was just pressure. We didn't really kind of aimlessly launch the ball into the box, but we had really good territory and really good composure in Charlton's third. Couldn't quite probe and ended up getting forced back. And it felt like a bit of a shame to an end of a decent spell of pressure when Tendai knocked it all the way back to George, and he thought, just for a moment, it looked a little bit dodgy, but he dealt with it well, played it out wide, and then a lovely ball into Ben House. And I think his contribution should not be diminished because of what happened afterwards. I'm not saying it created it for James Collins. He had a lot to do at that point, but his positioning to kind of pin the centre back and chest it in James Collins' direction, which allowed him to not break stride, was brilliant. And then, it was all about James Collins from that moment, wasn't it? Superb take. It's weird. I was watching it, and as soon as he picked up the ball, just felt like something was going to happen. You kind of just trust him. And it's very rare to have a centre forward that you trust to actually put the ball in the net. And he's our top league goal scorer now, and he's only been here half a season. Well, not even half a season.
Joint top.
So, yeah.
Joint top. They both got 7, haven't they, him and Jovan?
I think he's got 8, hasn't he, Collins?
Said 7 on Soccer Base.
I could be wrong.
I'll let you look that up while we then talk about something 5 minutes later. Dom Jeffrey's chance. We bigged Jeffrey's up. I think at the time, you 2-0 up and think, fair enough, have a go. But having watched it back, it was an opportunity probably to add a third and kill the game off. And by the way, the opportunity made by Ben House. Indeed.
Yeah, agreed. It's weird. When you 2-0 up, you kind of see any chances that happen after that as a bonus. And you think, that's a shame. Whereas if it was 1-0 or 0-0, you maybe see it as a bigger chance than it really was. Hindsight, of course, is a wonderful thing, isn't it? When we know what the outcome was in the end and you think, if we could have got an extra one there and made it 3, everything would have been okay. But so, there's probably not a huge amount for me to add on that other than, yes, I agree with you. It was a big moment. But at the time, it didn't really worry me too much. But from that moment on, really, Charlton threw their kitchen sink at at us, didn't they? And they got themselves back into the game with I would say, a disappointing goal from our perspective on 56 minutes.
Yeah, I think the major disappointment is probably the clearance from the front post. It escapes me who it was, but it wasn't a good corner when it came in. And it's just kind of been a little bit, it's been sliced and it's not nice. What I'm not going to do is go typical Lincoln gifting another goal, because although it wasn't pretty from our view, I don't think there was a glaring individual error. It was, it was a sliced clearance from a corner. But I think as soon as that ball's gone in, and there was fault there, it wasn't. I'm not saying it was a good goal for us to concede. Eric Ring, Malcolm says, I think it was who sliced the effort. It's just a poor clearance, and from there it's a little bit of I don't know. It's just it's not Benny Hill kind of or anything like that. It just wasn't a great goal to concede. But as soon as you let them back in, 15,000, they've got their promotion on their minds. They then have the opportunity to push home, and I think you'll want to perhaps talk about how we reacted, because actually I thought after that they had 4 or 5 minutes where it felt a little bit like the Alamo. The stats don't say that, but it felt like they were swarming round us. It was almost like you stood in your garden and you could just see a whole swarm of bees coming out. It's like, I'm going to get stung. And then all of a sudden we batted it away, and I thought we looked, for a short period, I thought we looked comfortable at 2-1.
Yes, I 100% agree with everything you've said there. Surprise, surprise. On the goal, I don't want to be too harsh on Eric, because I thought he, from an attacking perspective, was actually quite a threat in this game. I'm liking that he's getting a bit of a chance to show his offensive ability on either side as well, and I think he did that yesterday. But he is in that specific position so that he can cut out that exact delivery and clear it. And it's a minor error because he's got something on it. He has sliced it. So it's really harsh to really blame him. But his job in that situation is to get a really good solid foot on it. He's not going to mark anyone. He's there to cut that ball out. And it was because of that the rest of it looked a little bit comical. I don't think anyone did anything wrong really from that. It was just where the ball ended up popping up. It was that little bit. So I felt disappointed for him really, but because it was a mistake and it was a small error that actually had a big consequence, so that makes it feel bigger. But it is his job to clear it. But once that goal goes in, you felt the whole kind of atmosphere, the whole feeling around the ground, everything just changed. You could feel that we maybe shrunk into our shell just a little bit for a few minutes. And I agree, it felt like the Alamo. You could see Charlton fans were up. The players had the bit between their teeth, and it felt like, oh, here we go. We're going to get kind of not slaughtered here, but there's going to be an onslaught. And there was for a bit, and then there wasn't anymore. I agree with you, which is why the eventual goal was, albeit probably not really a mistake. I wouldn't say the second goal at all. It was just a disappointing one, because I thought we'd defended well up until that point.
I don't want to talk about the second goal yet, because there was 20 minutes elapsed between their first goal and their second goal, and they had one shot in that time. So one registered shot. So whilst it felt like the Alamo, as I say, it felt like we were really under it, we actually weren't, and we managed it really, really well. And Tristan Cropley says our time wasting was impeccable. And do you know what? I mentioned that again in my write-up. I was so pleased to finally see us like that again, because going back as far as probably Michael Appleton, we lost that, excuse my language, we lost the shithousery. We lost the ability to manage games. I mean, I remember, like, if Danny Cowley's team went 1-0 up on 70 minutes, the ball was in play for 5 minutes before the final whistle. And I thought we were really quite good at that. And the referee bought it a little bit. And do you know what? If that happens at Sincil Bank, if it's Burton doing it at Sincil Bank, we come on this podcast and we're calling them everything under the sun. And we did it. I can't remember who did it the other week, It might even have been Burton.
I think it was Burton, yeah.
It was Burton with Ruben Ricardo was the referee. It was the same referee on Tuesday night. And we absolutely slated the referee. We said, Burton do what they do. That's fair, whatever. The ref's got to manage it. Yesterday's referee was impeccable for us because he didn't manage it. I mean, even to a point where he added 5 minutes injury time on when there should have probably been 8. And then he only played 4 minutes 50 on it. As Tristan said, I thought we managed the game really well. And I actually think when you watch their goal back, were it not for I think it's a deflection. I think there's a little deflection as it goes through. Were it not for a deflection, I don't think that we lose the game. I don't think we draw the game, rather. And I don't think there's anybody to blame for the second goal. I really don't. The more you watch it back, it's just a decent strike, and it is what it is, isn't it?
It is. Yeah, it's disappointing because we were 2-0 up and we'd fought so hard up until that point. As you say, we kind of kept them at arm's length. I think there's like a 5-minute spell after they scored where it felt really, really dangerous, but that first goal, that is, and then we settled. And it came at a point where I actually felt reasonably settled with us defensively, because the lads were, no one can say that they're on the beach yet, can they, by the way, in terms of how hard they worked and fought and threw their bodies on the line. And it's just one of those where I agree. I think it took a little deflection. There's not a single Lincoln City player at fault. It's just, football's happens. Sometimes just football happens, doesn't it? And things that are out of your control kind of just end up as they do. I think Charlton scored their 2 goals off the back of volume of chances in the end, rather than it being, real clear-cut opportunities. So it was disappointing. It's weird though. When it got to 2-2, I was a little bit gutted because I felt we'd defended well, but I also didn't have it in me to say that they didn't deserve at least a point out of the game. Charlton, that is.
They did.
Because they absolutely did, yeah. But I don't think they did enough to beat us, even though the statistics show that there's a mismatch there. A lot of those stats are swayed by the fact it was 2-0 at one point, so the game state really swings those stats a little bit. But no one likes being 2-0 up and then not getting the win. But genuinely, and this isn't me just being diplomatic, I don't think, if you'd offered me a point before the game, obviously would have absolutely taken that. And even if you'd offered me a point as soon as we scored the second goal, I think I probably would have still taken it, even not quite so happily. Not so happily, but if you said, right, you can leave right now with a point and everyone goes home happy, okay, yeah, all right, fine.
But you're the sort of person that would have gone on bullseye and not gambled at the end. You would have walked away with your £110. That's what you've got
to gamble on TV shows. No, maybe I'm being silly. Maybe I wouldn't have accepted that. But the point I'm making is when they scored their second goal, you think, that's frustrating, but let's not lose. A loss would have been really, really harsh on us, but I think a point would still be a fair result on the balance of the whole 90 minutes. But I don't think a 3-2 win for Charlton would have been, despite the swing in the stats, is kind of the point I'm making.
And it could, of course, have been 3-2. We've brushed over the save from Chukwuemeka because George Wickens is a keeper. He's paid to make saves. But the good keepers are paid to make saves like you made from Matty Godden. And as a former keeper yourself, you must have just looked at that, because it's not shades at Gordon, Banks and Pele, but it's a similar thing. Godden's not quite, he's a little bit further out, but he's headed it down. He's headed it slightly away from the keeper. I mean, it was that save, as I think Jared Fox said earlier in the comments, that save was worth every bit as much as a goal.
Yeah, agree totally. Brilliant save. And not a former goalkeeper, by the way, just had a hiatus this season.
Retired.
I'm not officially retired at all. I'm more than happy to keep playing. If anyone would like a goalkeeper for hire, I am still available. Anyway, more about George Wickens, because plaudits deserved 100% for him. 100%. Brilliant save. Made 3 really big saves in this game, as well as being quite dominant aerially as well. His distribution was really, really good. The distance he's getting on his clearances seems to have increased, but also the accuracy is there as well. Just a superb performance. It was a man of the match performance if James Collins wasn't on the pitch doing what he did. You can never, it's even with my most rose-tinted glasses on in favour of goalkeepers and in the goalkeeper union, no one's going to give a goalkeeper man of the match when a centre forward scores a goal like that and scores a second, well, two brilliant goals like he did, and such good kind of all-round play. No one in their right mind would give George Wickens man of the match when James Collins plays how he did. But I would say his performance, of course you would. His performance was all every piece as important as James Collins's goal wasn't. What goals even?
Yes, yeah, I agree. And like you say, it's a brave man that gives, or woman, or whatever it's whoever, but it's a brave person that gives George Wickens man of the match over James Collins. But you could argue that both had as bigger impact, and I'm delighted for George because in him I see a goalkeeper who could be every bit as good as the Josh Griffiths and the Alex Palmer and the Carl Rushworths. That he just felt this season that he's not struggled to get going, but I think the defence haven't helped out because we've gifted a few howlers. He made not mistakes, but there was one or two shots early on you thought he could save. But there's been a couple of performances now where you can see what he's all about. And I think that if he can get a 40, 43, 44 game season, as Rushworth did, and as Palmer did, I think they both played 40 plus games. Griffiths was a little bit less. And as Lucas did last year, I think we've got a goalkeeper there that could well be worth as much as Lucas was. And that's what we're looking for. You're never going to get, I don't think you are, you get £1 million for a goalkeeper because, I mean, big clubs wait until they're out of contract a lot of the time, don't they? Like Man United are just waiting for Freddie Woodman at Preston at the minute, so then they tend to move on. But you might get a 450,000, and that would be a good six-figure sum on top. So I was really pleased with George. Anything else to add on the game before we go to a break? Because I know
there is
one. It depends. Is it Paudie O'Connor coming back in? Because we can talk about that after the break.
No, it is about the match that I've just checked my notes from yesterday, and I've something I forgot to mention. So it's I just think it's worth crediting the gaffer here because he made a little tactical switch which helped. The result in the end didn't necessarily show this, but you referenced it really interestingly here. You said that after they scored their first goal, it was a good 5-6 minute spell where we thought, bloody hell, we're in for it here, and then it just settled down and everything felt okay until their second goal, which kind of came a little bit, not against the run of play as such, but they weren't kind of throwing everything at us at that point. We felt quite comfortable. And it was off the back of a tactical change. So we played 4-2-3-1 this game. We started in that regular shape. But on 63 minutes, which was 7 minutes after they scored their goal, Tom Bayliss came on for Eric Ring and we changed our shape to a back three. And it just nullified their threat. You said they had one shot in that period of time between the two goals. And yeah, ultimately a soft goal was then, well, not really soft, but a disappointing goal, but not really a mistake was made for the second goal. That kind of happens. But I think you want to analyse the performance rather than the outcome sometimes. And the performance from a defensive perspective, which was the important part of the game at that point, we wanted to defend the lead that we had, was really good. But it wasn't just the players on the pitch as much as we want to praise them because there were some really, really positive performances there. I think it's worth crediting the coaching staff because they made a tactical switch there to nullify a particular couple of threats. I think Charlton made a good change. They changed shape. They brought Chuks and AK on. Chuks and AK was a bloody handful. So we basically shifted it round so we could have 3v2 against him up top plus his centre-forward partner. But it was good. I think it was worth noting that we changed shape at that point and it helped to see it out at that point. And then there was another tactical change that I think we probably ought to touch on towards the end of the game.
With a break.
Okay, of course. I'll be quiet then.
Yeah, because we're getting to break time, aren't we? And I've got to go to bed tonight. All the people watching have got to go to work. So we do have to occasionally rein Chris in a little bit. So we will go to a commercial break where we do have doubtless some discussion about Dom Jeffries. I'd like to talk about Sam Clucas. We're going to talk about Paudie O'Connor. We've got season tickets, Joe Gardner. And possibly we're even going to pick some players that we have been impressed with in recent weeks. All that after the break. Unless, of course, you're watching on YouTube, and we'll now go back through a couple of comments, but not pick up on any of the new topics. So all the way to the top, Adam, always on board. Evening. Good evening to you. Flossie is on board. Good evening, everybody. Mr. Barton is on board as well. Evening, gentlemen. By the way, I am doing well, aren't I? I'm 4.5 pints.
I did have
a look. Yeah, I had four. I had 1.5 in the Prince of Wales and then 3 in the Ivy. On the way back. Gerard Fox is evening, everyone. Gerard is what I was called in my first year French class because they gave you your French name. So if you were like Frank, you were Franck, and Gerard was the equivalent of Gary, apparently. So there we go. Andy Brown, evening. James, I've seen he was on. Evening. Andy Simmons, good evening. Malcolm is on. Evening, as is Ben. As is Mr. Godson. As is Carl. as is Caroline. There we go. As is Emily, who we may be getting on the podcast in a couple of weeks' time as a special guest as well. Another 13 on the attendance would have made it 617, according to Mr. Godson. Sue's on board, worth every penny of the trip. James Collins, superb. Eric and Tom Hamer, outstanding. Keith is with us. Been critical of House and McGrandles, but they both did well yesterday, so I'll give credit where it's due. Keith, that is the sort of thing that I respect, when people are critical of a player and then are able to see when they do well. And so often people stick by what they believe their opinion is right and refuse to have it changed. And a good opinion is one that's always willing to be changed. Mr. Degari is on. Gary, you look so fresh, given you delivered a PB today. Well, I don't like to mention it, Paul, but I did deliver a PB. And I'm just fresh because I'm a young, impressive-looking man. We got Craig Harvey. Between now and the end of the season, does Collins start every game regardless? Not if he's injured. Sue Imp, set piece again. Ole, ole. We've seen that Tristan is on. Disappointed not to hold out for the win. Let's have a look. I think we're about there. Joe Horner says, do you think we concede that goal with Pordy on the pitch? I think we've conceded worse with Pordy on the pitch, if I'm honest. Maybe we do, maybe we don't. I think Dave Sandel, he's on board. Thank you. Mark W. Which players do you feel need more game time? We might touch on that if we get time. Whew. That's everybody. Can we come back in?
Let's do it.
We'll come back in on 41 minutes because I like to keep things neat. Hello and welcome back to the second half of the Stacey West podcast. So we will pick up on the game again. We have 25 minutes to go. We were going to pick up, I think, on Dom Jeffries, weren't we? Was that the change that you were going? You pick up on the tactical element of it, and I'll pick up on the refusing to hold the shirt and storming off down the tunnel element of it.
Yeah, I felt for him. I did feel for him because obviously a substitute getting substituted is never, ever enjoyable. It did make sense, though. It made sense tactically because I mentioned we credited Michael for going to a 3. So basically we had 2 centre-halves for 60-odd minutes. Then we went to 3 centre-halves. It then went to 2-2 and Charlton were then in the last few minutes throwing everything at the game and we were just trying to hold on for something from the game. And we effectively went, right, let's have 4 centre-backs then. And not necessarily play 4 at the back. Well, it was a back 4. But it was effectively having 4 defensive-minded players playing in the back 4 with Tom Hamer moving over to right, back in a 4 again. Sean Rowe moving to left, back in a 4, and we bring Lewis Monsmer in to partner Jacko in the centre. Just to give us some real solidity in the box, just to see the game out and make sure we went away with something. Something that a certain Mr. Cowley said, and I seem to remember Michael Scubalo quoting this last season at some point. If you can't win, don't lose. So we absolutely did everything we could to not lose, and it made tactical sense to make that change. But obviously, you feel for Dom. I've really kind of praised Dom, and we've been really kind of positive around his impact this season. But I'm kind of split here, Gaz, because part of me doesn't want a player to be happy to come off in that situation. But I also think maybe there's a little bit going over the top with showing quite so much frustration, considering it was quite obviously tactically sensible to make that choice.
I can get him being upset. Terry Bourne didn't take him off. So to refuse the shirt that's thrown at him, for me, you've got to direct your anger. I like to see the passion. I do. But the thing is, it feeds into negative people who'll go, it's not a happy camp. It's not this, it's not that. I've been every single season, and I'm not going to say who, but it's nearly always the same person on Twitter as well, tells me it's not a happy camp, tells me that there's dissent in the ranks, tells me this is not right and that's not right. Same time every season. But when Jeffries reacts like that, it feeds into that. I'm with you. I'm split. I don't want to criticise Dom because you know what? If it was me, I'd be raging. And Mark Hone was on the radio. He had it a couple of times. He was taken off after 15 minutes for not putting the ball in the channel, for knocking it inside to his fellow central midfielder. It's really, really tough. I think Dom is a good player. I think he's done really well for us. I wonder if we might on Thursday or Friday see him as the player in the press conference. I think that might be a shout.
Interesting.
Yeah, and I think you've almost got to. It's either got to be him or it's got to be Sam Clucas, because there's the other question. We understand that Sam Clucas was signed kind of as cover for Ethan Arahan, as that kind of player that can play that position. Arahan gets injured, and we don't see Sam. Now, I think a lot of the clamour is the local story. I think if Sam was just another midfielder that had come in, it wouldn't be quite as loud. But it was a similar thing with Max Sanders a few years ago. Whenever there's a player that's not playing, everybody thinks that player should be playing. Apart from Hakeem Adelakan, to be fair, which, rightly or wrongly, nobody thought he should be playing, and then he came in and did relatively well. But that seems to be the case. If they're not playing, there's got to be something wrong. Now, I'm not going to speculate as to why Sam's not playing, because from a tactical point of view, is there a place for him on the pitch? Of course there is. One way or another there is. His fitness hasn't looked bad. He gave the penalty away against Birmingham, which was a bit of a silly moment. And I think had that been one of the favourite punch bags, had that been a Sean Rowan or had that been a Jovan Makama, that would still be getting talked about now. Well, they gave that stupid penalty away against Birmingham. So Sam's got credit in the bank. But to not even be on the bench as well when we are missing Arahan, it is just probably a little bit... question mark, maybe? I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't know if it's been confirmed whether he's injured or not, by the way, because he wasn't in the squad on Tuesday or Saturday. So there is every chance he might be injured, and we're making a big deal out of nothing here. I could be wrong with this understanding. My understanding is that we have Ethan Arahan in that holding role, and if he was sold in January, we would then play Conor McGrandles there, but we needed someone to be cover, because you always want two that can play in that position. So my understanding is that Clucas was almost signed as cover for McGrandles if McGrandles had to replace Arahan, if that makes sense. So I'm not surprised to see him not get as much game time as maybe some people expected to. Like you say, I think it's the story around it maybe elevates the expectations there a little. What I will say though is the fact we played 2 6s now means that there probably is space for him there, and I don't think he's looked out of place when he's played. And I would like to see him get a little bit more game time between now and the end of the season, just to have the opportunity to show what he can do. Because I don't think he's necessarily had that opportunity. But also on the 3 players who have been rotating in those 2-6 positions in the last few matches, in McGrandles, who we've just praised, was outstanding, of course, yesterday. And was pretty solid on on Tuesday when he came on, but he didn't start, did he? Ethan Hamilton had some time out of the team and has impressed in his last couple of starts. And Tom Bayliss has been brilliant when he's been played there. Of course, his delivery is a real weapon, isn't it? So, you can't play with 12 players. So if you want Sam Clucas to play, someone else doesn't get to. And I think the question is, well, who does he play instead of? And I don't know at the moment. I don't think there is anyone who he should start ahead of, because no one deserves to be missing out, really. The 2 places that are available are currently being shared by 3 players, and all 3 of them kind of deserve to play at the moment. Don't get me wrong, I imagine Sam will be disappointed. I imagine he'll want to play, but I also don't think he was ever signed with the intention of playing week in, week out, every match. And I think and I agree with you, if he didn't have the history with the club or the fact he was a local guy, no one would be as bothered about this. Any other 34-year-old central midfielder that comes in on a 6-month deal with an option of an extra one for cover of a central midfielder that you might sell, if it's anyone other than Sam Clucas, you're probably absolutely fine with the situation he's in right now. It's only because he's a guy that's probably got a little bit of unfinished business at the club, and we all would like to see, because it's a nice story, and it is a lovely story, and I would like to see him. I just don't know who he's going to play instead of, because no one else really deserves to lose their place, in my opinion.
So let's then move on to another player who has what feels like swiftly finishing business with Lincoln City, and that's Paudie O'Connor. Now, the reason I want to talk about Paudie is since he's been out, I think we've been pretty good. I think we've done fairly well. So with that in mind, and it's a question I'm happy for people to answer in the comments as well. We have 5-6 games left, something like that, off the top of my head. Paudie O'Connor's captain, but at the minute hasn't penned a new deal. As I understand it, we could keep pretty much every other centre-back at the club if we needed to. Sean Rowan, the only one who could turn a contract down and move away, but he's obviously been playing left back in the four. Does Pawdy come back in, or do you have to prioritise Tom Hamer, Lewis Monsma, and potentially Adam Jackson ahead of next season?
That's a very good question.
I know.
I think Pawdy is, if nothing else, earned the respect of a really positive send-off in the final game, and he starts that match against Wrexham because the service he's given us this season, not just this season, but the last few seasons, but particularly this season, that leadership he's shown has been monumental for us. Yeah, okay, he's got a disappointing suspension at the moment, and there are some negatives, and the discipline element is maybe that, but I think you absolutely play him, particularly in the last game, if nothing else, for sentimental reasons. And I know, some people say that there isn't a place for sentiment in football, and I would probably normally agree with that. But in the final game of the season, when there really is genuinely nothing to play for in our perspective, it's not like we're bringing someone in that isn't going to be capable, is it? We're bringing in who is probably our best centre-back. So I think he definitely plays the last game of the season. Would he get potentially one or two more other than that he'd be eligible for? I'm not sure. And then it's, I don't know. Depends how the other ones play, doesn't it? Depends how the next 2 or 3 games go without him in the team. If we look equally as solid, then probably you don't just bring him straight back in for those ones. But I would absolutely play him in the last game of the season, if for no other reason than it's quite sentimental, and he's kind of earned that positive send-off with the fans, but also stylistically will probably suit playing against Wrexham as well.
So I've got 2 topics. We did say beforehand we were both going to pick a player who we were going to praise, but we don't need to both pick one. But I think that we would probably have picked the same one had we been given a free pick. And we're talking about centre halves. So I think it probably pays to mention him. Tom Hamer has been outstanding since he's come back from injury, but he's been quietly outstanding in that, he hasn't done anything that's particularly... That was amazing from Tom Hamer. He's gone in there. He's been dependable. He's not let us down at all. Now, I think back to Peterborough away. I think it was the Peterborough away game. He gave the ball away and it eventually resulted in their goal. I remember at the time, he felt like the player on the fringe of things. He felt like a player who, where's he going to play? Where's he going to fit in? I can now see if he stays fit for 46 games next season, he plays centre-back for us for 46 games next season. His throw, as Steve said there, is absolutely phenomenal. It's a great weapon, but we have stopped using it on both sides. So we do only use it on the side that he plays, so he's not particularly out of position. But he's probably, for me, and there have been a few bright sparks since the defeat at Barnsley back at the beginning of last month. So over the last month period, there have been a few bright sparks. But for me, I really just wanted to mention Tom Hamer because I think that he is a huge, huge asset for next season.
Agreed 100%. I think he's been outstanding since he's come back into the team. And in regards to who plays next to him, like you said, does Pawdy come in, does Jacko play, does Lewis play? There's an argument for all of them. But with, as Michael has mentioned, one eye on next season, I think you absolutely play Tom Hamer in every single game that he's available to play between now and the end of the season. You play him at centre-back, and unless he does anything absolutely catastrophic, then he's going to be one of the first names on the team sheet, I think, next season for us. I've been so impressed with him at centre-back. And let's not forget, it's a position he hadn't actually played a huge amount of in his career at centre-back in a 2. He played on the right of a 3 a bit. He'd often played at full-back or wing-back in a 4 or a 5. We felt like he had the attributes to play as an outside centre-back. We actually felt he would basically be an Alex Mitchell replacement in terms of what Alex did last season. But he slotted into a back 2, or 2 centre-backs, just seamlessly. I think he's been so aggressive, but he's been composed. He hasn't kind of looked like he's last ditch at any point, or he's been kind of going over the top. He's been strong and aggressive, but he hasn't looked like he's been kind of overly aggressive to the point where it's needless. You know what I mean? In terms of when it goes over the top and it becomes a problem. It's kind of controlled aggression. Yeah, I don't want to kind of throw any more superlatives because I can't think of any, but he's been really good, and I would really like him to play every single match between now and the end of the season. So the question is, who plays next to him now, and also who's going to partner him next season, of course, which is something that will be much discussed, I'm sure, throughout the summer.
So another player that we must discuss, because he has been the subject of transfer speculation this morning, is Joe Gardner. Now, I think it's Alan Nixon, and he writes for The Sun, so you can put an asterisk next to this particular piece of news. But he is claiming, and it's probably not the most surprising piece of news, he's claiming that we are looking at taking Joe Gardner on loan again next season. Now, we haven't seen an awful lot of Joe. What we have seen in patches has been very good. He obviously stood out against Crawley, very unlucky to be sent off in his opening game. Didn't get any time yesterday, but started against Huddersfield. Probably didn't get, looked decent in patches against Huddersfield, but a very tough game in terms of the opposition having possession. And Joe Gardner is a player that you want on the ball, but could probably play anywhere across that three behind James Collins next season. This would seem like the sort of transfer rumour that, whilst very easy to fill newspaper column inches, if there were such things as newspapers that people bothered with anymore, but at the same time, something that as Lincoln City fans, one, we can see being realistic, and two, we can see being beneficial to the team.
100%. It makes total sense for, not just for us, but it kind of makes sense for all three parties, doesn't it? And you don't tend to see that very often, particularly with just a random transfer room. It makes sense for us. He's shown glimpses of being a really exciting, threatening player. It makes sense for Joe because he's come into the team this season. When he's played, he's impressed. It's travel-wise not too far away, and he's clearly had a good time at the club so far. And I think his loan has achieved what it set out to do. So, and you'd imagine it would work for Forest as well, because as well as Joe has done, I don't feel that he's likely to be featuring in Forest's Premier League squad next season. So it would make sense for him to go back out on loan again. And unless there is a Championship club that's guaranteeing him game time, which I'm not sure there will be off the back of a handful of substitute appearances in League One, makes total sense to give him another year with us. It makes total sense for all parties. But it would be great if we could get that tied up and get it confirmed before the transfer window officially opens, before the season is over. So it's kind of one in the bag and we haven't got to worry about it. And it kind of cures the speculation a little bit as well.
Yeah, we've had a good relationship with Forest over the last few years. It does make sense. If he had come to us and smashed it, and he had got 2 goals and 3 assists, and was starting and playing as really regularly, I could see a lower end Championship club. If they're still in the division. I mean, Oxford did their some sort of world good yesterday, but an Oxford, not Plymouth, because they're obviously coming down, or one of the teams that go up like a Wrexham, or potentially if somebody like Charlton went up through the playoffs, you could see it happening. But I think the benefit from Forest's point of view as well is also location, because he probably doesn't have to move. If they want to call him back for a week, it's nice and easy. It's why probably the likes of Bailey Cadamartri came here rather than go to Wrexham, because they can still maintain that connection with their club. And you do tend to see loan deals kind of be quite regional unless there's money involved. I mean, you look back to Conor Bradley at Bolton. Bolton were always going to be in a better position to take somebody from a big club in the northwest than, for instance, we would be or Grimsby would be. So it's really beneficial for Lincoln City to see Forest in the Premier League riding high, because they're going to have a better quality of youngster, you would imagine, coming through, and that better quality of youngster is going to be more available for us. The only other thing, of course, is that Walsall were interested in him as well, and it's not a massive journey, I don't think, from Nottingham to Walsall. Certainly not 3 hours across the country. So Nottingham's fairly well based. But again, it's the Brennan Johnson, isn't it? Obviously, he scored twice today to relegate Southampton. Johnson and Morgan Rogers coming here and playing regular football and going on to play in the Premier League has done us the world of good, and that's a legacy that we can kind of not sit back on, but it's something that you can go, well, look, we've done it with players before, and it's not just under Appleton, it's not just under Mark Kennedy, it's not just it's constant. So yeah, interesting. I think a season-long loan has been mooted, and I could see that being hugely beneficial for us. Can you imagine that? Makama on one flank, Gardner on the other, swap him, Rico in the 10 role, and then you've still got players like Tom Bayliss, Jack Moylan. I genuinely say
JJ McKiernan, who I'm really excited about for next season. Rob Street, of course, who has scored another goal yesterday. Did so well on that loan. I think he'll add something. I think he's in our 4-2-3-1, by the way. Little side note. Rob Street can play in the number 9 or either flank as the kind of Jovan kind of inside forward role. Rob could do that job just as well, I think. So if he keeps his form going, we've got another asset there. We're in a really strong position for next season. We really are. It's just we want to get this season over and done with so we can get excited about it.
Do you know what it feels like? It feels like the opposite of the 2020-21 season, but still beneficial. So in that season, all of our old players were going. We had to completely remodel the squad, but because of the wage cap, we were in a great position going into that summer because it was a buyer's market at the time. Whereas now we're going into a summer where, there's going to be lots of people spending lots of money, but actually some of our transfers have come off. And I know that people will disagree. Some people will disagree with me on this. I'm happy to be disagreed with. But if we got all our loan players back that are out now, and we were able just to hold on to Joe Gardner and the season kicked off tomorrow, I think we would be in just as good a shape now as we are just as good a shape in however many months' time. I think we'd still challenge top 10. I genuinely think that we've got a good squad. We don't need wholesale restructuring. And I think that the club will be delighted with that because whatever additional budget there may be, it can kind of be on a special thing. It's like when you first get married. If you are moving into a house and all your wedding presents have got to kit out your house, you need your toaster, your microwave, your oven, you need all of that. But we're in a position now where literally we've got all that stuff. So if not you and I, of course, but if we were going to get married, you'd go, just chuck in for us to get a 60-inch plasma screen. Do you know what I mean? It's to get that crowning thing. It's to get that special thing that tops everything off.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think if you're looking at budget for next year, we don't know what the budget's going to be, of course. You'd imagine it'll be similar or maybe slightly higher. But in terms of like the budget league table, I can't see us being a million miles away from where we are now. We might edge up slightly just because of the teams that are coming and joining the league from either end compared to what's leaving. But in terms of our actual outgoing, can't see it being too different. And I agree with you, though, in that I think we're pretty well set for next season. There's a couple of question marks over the back line, but now we've moved to a back four. That's less. It's even less pressure because if we were losing so many centre backs, and you'd need to have at least 5 first-team centre backs in your squad if you're going to play a back 3. But if you're only going to play a back 4, you need 3 or 4, and you're okay. So yeah, there's going to be a little bit of extra budget available next season because there will be 1 or 2 leaving, of course, because there always will. But we've got players contracted to the club that are already budgeted for that are not even part of the squad at the moment that are doing well, like Rob Street, JJ McKinnon. Got young players on the fringes. And players who are out, like injured, like Jack Mullen, who have got real potential. And if we do have a little bit of money to spend, yeah, we can sign quality rather than having to get quantity. And if you're kind of thinking, well, we haven't got any left, like we did this summer, we haven't got any left wing backs. We don't know what Rico Hackett's injury is like. We don't know what Dylan Duffy's ban is. We need to make sure we sign a couple of players there. Whereas if you only need to go, if you have that money, but you only need to sign 1. Well, you can get a better one, can't you? So yeah, I think it'd be interesting to see where we choose to add that. It's interesting. I've just seen a comment in here. Any chance of getting Danny Cadamartri back? I don't think we need him. No. I think with James Collins, particularly playing 1 up top now, with James Collins, Freddie Draper as a kind of a little bit of a backup, Ben House, who I think is going to be more of a number 10 than a number 9, but can play there if we need him to. Rob Street and Jovan Makama, who again can play there and have played there. I think we're pretty well set up in that front line. I don't think we'll sign a centre forward unless we lose one, of course. Unless we don't keep Ben House and he doesn't get his contract extended, or unless we sell Jovan Makama, for example. But as the squad is right now, I don't think we need to sign a centre forward. And they're expensive, so that means that whatever money is available can really improve the squad elsewhere because they're actually okay up top, and that's mad, isn't it? We don't actually need a centre forward. My God,
we got our most important summer signing in January. That's James Collins.
James Collins, yeah.
And it goes back to the goal. We were talking about the goal. Honestly, I genuinely think that the biggest player for us next season will be James Collins. He will score, if he stays fit, 20 goals in League One for Lincoln next season. And if he's scoring 20 goals and we're throwing another 27 on top of that from set pieces, that's 47 goals before anybody else has chipped in with anything from open play. You can then survive on players like Ben House coming in with 5 and stuff like that. So, yeah, really, really interesting. And as we are on the subject of next season, we ought to touch on season ticket sales. Now, I think they extended the window until tomorrow. So you can still get your season ticket at the early bird price until tomorrow. I was told a little earlier on today that we've now sold 4,400 season tickets, which is really important to note are the general admission season tickets. So what we're not talking about here is the hospitality, the
200 club.
Yeah, that sort of thing. So 4,400 renewals in general seating. Now, last year when they released the overall 5,000, that then included hospitality. So if somebody's gone back and gone, well, actually, you tweeted 5,000 last season and now we're only at 4,400, that isn't a reduction. We're talking general admission at the minute. So, and then tomorrow night, doubtless, they'll put the full thing out. So 4,400 season tickets sold. And that's at the early bird price, by the way, as well. I mean, I don't know what the uptake's like after that. Some people may financially have to make a decision later on. But I think that that's a great uptake, considering that the social media chatter a month or 5-6 weeks ago was, attendances are dwindling, season tickets will fall, etc., etc. I think that just underlines that actually the vocal minority don't always speak for the silent majority.
Yeah, agreed. And I don't think this is being kind of just blindly backing the club and trying to defend the situation we're found ourselves in, because objectively attendances are not down at all. They are actually slightly up on last season. And the season, and in terms of season tickets, it's let's be honest, it's similar to last year, isn't it? It's not a massive difference either way. We're not here to defend it too much. It's similar to last year. But let's not forget there was a massive increase in season tickets last season on the back of the season before, probably because of the end of the season that we had. It got a lot of people engaged that maybe that were on the fence. They decided to going to go for it. So to be anywhere near the numbers that we were last year at this point, without the excitement of the end of season that we had last year be repeated this time round, I think it's all right, isn't it? Everything's all right. So ultimately, I think the headline is fans are sticking around, and they have done for many years now on the whole. Our attendances have been hovering around the 8,500 mark for a good few years now. In terms of average number of home supporters in the stadium, it's been averaging around 8,000 pretty much for a number of years now. I think our attendances are stable. I don't think we can ever say that they're not growing at the moment, because there's not much room to stick anyone else in the stadium, but then they're not dwindling at all. We'll have one game here or there where it's a little bit lower, but yeah, generally speaking, you did an article on it a few weeks ago, didn't you? They're pretty stable. So that's good, though. That's good. That shows that we've got a loyal fan base, and that's what we all like to see.
Well, I was just looking at it now, and that's by season. So from 2018, so that'd be the 2017-18 season, averaged 8,782. Then it went up to 9,000 when we won the title, 8,9, 8,7, 8,48, and 8,42 over the last couple of seasons. There's a slight drop off, but then this season, actually, the average looks like again coming out around 8,5. So for 3 seasons, bear in mind that's away fans as well. So when you've had the likes of Sunderland filling out 10,000, Ipswich always bring quite a few, because there's big spenders in this division. But actually, take Birmingham out of it, and there's not as many big attendances. Derby was another one that we've had in recent years. I mean, Huddersfield was not a bad attendance, but not as good as it has been in recent seasons. So probably, if anything's let us down this season, it's been the away attendances a little bit. And we've also been unlucky with some of the games that we've had, like a Boxing Day clash against Derby would certainly have brought a hell of a lot more than a trip to Shrews. Do you know what I mean? If we'd been at home Boxing Day, you can always expect a bit of a bump as well. So, yeah, I mean, they're not going up, but like you say, and there is room in the stadium, averaging 8,500. There's room for another 2,000 on a match day.
Yeah,
so
but there's not a lot of room in good seats. If you're on the fence about going to, let's be honest, if you're on the fence about going to a 200
game, club.
Yeah, if you're on the fence about, we might go, might not. Should I bring the kids to their first game or not? Or should I take, come here for a lap? If you're not the sort of person that goes week in, week out, no matter what, but you're thinking you might want to go, and you have a look at which seats are available, you look at the co-op stand, and there's a couple of hundred in lower one, or you're looking at the stand behind the goal, you might think, I'm probably not going to get a very good view from there. I might not choose. It's not like there are loads of seats available in what you class as the prime positions, which is maybe one benefit of I suppose, the tiering that they're going to do next year, making the price difference to different areas. I'm just thinking there might be something in that. You never know. You never know.
I'd argue it. We know a couple of people who do bring their kids, and actually they're better with their kids in the Stacey West, because that way their kids can quite easily get down to the concourse and run around. Whereas if they're trapped in the seats in the upper three where we sit, the kids can't get out, they get fidgety. I mean, we know one or two people, don't we, that kind of come with a kid to maybe 10 home games a season and sit all over the stadium. I get your point, but I think if it was me or you, we didn't have a season ticket,
I would sit anywhere.
I'd probably go to Stacey West. Yeah, I probably would as well. Anyway, we are well over time. Of course we are, because Chris is on the podcast. Definitely not my fault. So we will bid you farewell. It's a little bit later on a Sunday evening than usual, but Sunday for me is like a Saturday night, because Monday's one of my quietest days. So that was episode 372 of the Stacey West podcast. We got to talk about a draw rather enthusiastically, because it was a very good draw. There's been more talking points tonight, I think, than we really expected when we sat down to say, what are we going to talk about? We topped out about 56 people watching live, so thank you very much for that. I will get this out on audio potentially first thing tomorrow now, because I don't know if I mentioned, but along with several thousand other people, I ran the Lincoln 10K today, so I'm a little bit tired. And 4.5 pints of Mahou, which is the latest beer that's probably been brewed in Burton. I am pretty tired. So thank you everybody for watching. There are still a few weeks left of the season. We will be back on Thursday. I say we, but it won't be me, and I don't think it'll be Chris. We'll probably play some pool. So yeah, thank you to everybody who has been watching. Up the imps.
Up the imps.